Welcome back, Camden Catholic. We're on day 4 in Italy, and as you can see, I'm standing right out here outside of the Colosseum. Not only the Colosseum, but I'm standing inside of the entire ancient Roman park. It includes the Constantine Arch, the Forum, which we'll talk about later, the actual Circus Maxima that we'll talk about later, Palatine Hill, Capitoline Hill, all of these amazing sites I've wanted to see my whole life. I actually almost got choked up there for a second. So, talk a little bit about the Colosseum, and I'm going to lay some pictures over top of this entire little quick video or whatever. Some of the coolest things about it, first of all, types of events they held, right? First and foremost, this thing actually, shout out to my honors kids, this is not the Circus Maxima. I was lied to as a student, right? This is just the Colosseum, also known as the Colossus of Nero, right? So this whole thing was actually built in dedication to Nero by 2 other emperors that followed him, the Flavians. Now, it was finished in 80 AD, 80 years after the birth of Christ. It can seat 50,000 people, and all levels of society was here. Poor, rich. Remember we talked about in class that the poor actually came in, like the Roman government liked to have the games because it kept the poor from rioting, kept them happy, gave them something to watch, gave them something to look at, and they would throw free bread and things like that out to the different people. Let's talk about the event, the daily happenings of if you actually came here. Some of the coolest stuff is that actually a lot of the poor brought their own food with them. They had small ceramic stoves that they would actually heat up leftovers from home on, usually meats, goat, horse, pig, things like that. A lot of pork dishes here in Rome, as we've noticed, because there's a lot of wild boar. Other really neat things, though, is that the entire event would start with really neat things like the hunt. So they would actually have mocked up hunts with different animals released into the Colosseum, and then they would actually send certain people out there to try and hunt them. Some gladiators would go out and hunt them, but before they ever sent the gladiators out with the vicious beasts, like the lions and the tigers and the bears, oh my, they actually sent the condemned out there. Some prisoners were used to be executed out there by the animals themselves. Other really neat things, though, is that actually while they were cleaning up after the hunts, they would also have jugglers, magicians, acrobats, things like that to perform to keep the people happy while they were waiting. All the while, a lot of the people in the stands, so first of all, the senators had reserved marble seats, and then the poor all sat everywhere else. And some of the cool things about it is, you know, some of the annoying stuff that we do as people at historical monuments where people write their names on everything. Oh, JC and Melissa forever. So they actually did the same thing. A lot of the poor Romans would actually etch their names and their favorite gladiators' faces into the marble slabs themselves. I have some pictures of that as well. A lot of people also would carry toothpicks with them, utensils, ceramic pots and stuff, like I said. Now, as the jugglers and the acrobats and all that stuff were going on, the main ticket that everybody wanted to see, of course, was the gladiator matches. Now, about the gladiators themselves, some of them were free men, most of them were slaves. The free men sometimes just wanted fame and fortune. The prisoners themselves were the prisoners of war. The slaves, they actually a lot of times were working for public, what's the word I'm looking for, sweetheart? Public fame, I guess? Public recognition to try and earn their freedom. And a lot of times, this wouldn't happen, a lot of them would die in the ring, but the really cool part about it is where they all lived. The gladiators actually all lived in a barracks that actually is adjacent to the Colosseum, and they would all come into the Colosseum underground. Now, in the underground tunnels, there were originally water tanks down there when they used to flood the Colosseum and have naval battles out there. But the gladiators would come in along with the animals underground, and they would actually be brought up to the top by a set of stairs. And one of the other really neat things about how they built this massive monument to history is they used only just simple rudimentary pulley systems and wood casings to try and guide the blocks up. This thing is made completely out of bronze, concrete, and sand, and it has withstood most of time. Now, a lot of you have noticed in some of the earlier pictures that it's falling apart, but it's actually not falling apart over time. It's falling apart because during the Middle Ages, a lot of people were taking the bronze out of it. You see all the little holes marred on the walls themselves? Bronze rods used to sit in there to keep the structure stiff and keep it held up. But a lot of people began to come in and steal them out to try and use them for themselves, and also stone robbers used to come in and steal a lot of things as well. Such an amazing sight, such an amazing thing to see, but I will show you the real Circus Maxima in a little bit, where Caligula used to pull poor people out of the stands, throw them into the middle, and let the lions eat them. right in the middle of the original Roman Forum. So in the early 7th and 8th century BC, the Roman Forum was actually a big marshland, and this led to a lot of excavation projects where they actually tried to drain the swamp itself. Now, as you can see behind me, it is still in immaculate condition. So it was originally used by the early Romans as cemeteries, and the coolest thing about the Roman Forum is it's actually the valley between Capitoline and Palatine Hills. Palatine Hill is the one behind me with the big archway in the back. That's actually where all the senators and the wealthy and the patricians actually lived, all the while the plebeians lived in places like this down in the bottoms, and then also over there in like the apartment style dwellings behind me. Now, one of the coolest thing is too, is that actually women were not, this is not cool that women were not allowed into the Forum to mill about on their own. However, one has made it down here successfully. So we actually right now are standing down here, but this is also the site of where the fire in Rome was believed to have happened by Nero, and actually him leading to the persecution of Christians as well. And it's like over time it's expanded significantly, and one of the coolest things, like I said, about it is a lot of times this became the political center of Rome, where people would actually meet and then discuss with the plebeians and with the plebeians their plans for the Roman Republic. The tribune benches were down here where the tribunes were elected and where they stayed. Also, it's just an absolutely monumental piece of work. And also, somebody tell me really quick what, Maria, do you know what set of laws were posted down here? Anybody?
Why are you asking me questions? I didn't study for this.
She said she didn't study for this. So I heard all of y'all shouting it though, and very good job, Sierra. The 12 tables were actually posted down here. Caesar was stabbed down here. So many events actually happened down in the Roman Forum itself. It is absolutely a magnificent condition, and I'm going to include some more pictures in a little while, all right? So now we went down Palatine Hill. We checked out the Forum, right? Of course, remember that the Forum is the Roman equivalent of the Greek Agora, where all of the government went on and where all of the shopping, trading, gambling, bargaining, daily life existed in the Forum, right? In our last section. So now we're on top of Capitoline Hill, right? So Capitoline Hill is where the modern Roman capital proceedings go on. Kind of like our Washington, D.C., right? So it's actually really cool because Capitoline Hill is where we get the phrase Capitol Hill for Washington, D.C., because D.C. is Capitol Hill, so it's atop everything else in Washington, D.C. So, and as you can see behind me, it opens up into the modern day city of Rome on the other side, with the ancient being on the opposite. So right now we're actually about to head down to the Tiber River, and we're going to start going down that way. And hopefully, if I have a chance, I'm going to be showing y'all the Circus Maxima as well. So we've already seen some really cool sights today. We've seen the Colosseum, seen the Roman Forum, where all the government and all the daily life of the Romans went on. We've seen Palatine Hill, where the wealthy lived. We've seen, I actually took a picture and showed you Trajan's Forum when he expanded it and created a more plebeian living apartments, right? Behind me, of course, that's Hadrian on the horse. Hadrian's the guy that actually expanded the Roman Empire and went all the way up into Europe, or all the way up into England, and built that wall to signal the stop of the Roman Empire. And now we're standing on Capitoline Hill. And so guys, we've done a lot of things today. We've eaten some lunch, and now I'm standing currently on the Palatine Hill, right? I'm actually standing in the ruins of the palace of the emperors themselves of Rome, right? I'm actually standing right now on the edge of what apparently is a small stadium inside the palace itself, and then right behind me right there is one of the main areas where your main man Augustus lived, right? Augustus actually lived where I'm standing right now. Caesar walked his footsteps in the areas that I'm standing in right now. And then also it overlooks one of the coolest things that you'll see today, the Circo Maximum, right? So the actual Maximum Circus, where they held all the chariot races and things like that. So it has been an amazing day, and the fact that I'm literally standing in the footsteps of where the Roman emperors during the Roman Empire actually stood, it's quite honestly one of the most amazing things I've ever done. So let's go ahead and head down towards the circus, shall we? All right, guys, so this is our last stop today in Rome. This is the Circo Massimo, right? Also known as the Maximum Circus. So this is actually the first version of the Colosseum. Remember when we talked about the first couple days in Rome after geography, when we talked about the city setup, we talked about the Forum, which we saw today, we talked about the Colosseum, which we saw today. So this is actually the very first version of the Colosseum itself. Also home to, as you can see, the seats are right over there, right? And also down there is where all of the gladiatorial battles, animal battles, things like that would happen. But the other big event that happened here, and it was Caligula's favorite, was actually the chariot races. So if you look all the way in the back, where you can see the gravel lines going towards the back, this thing is actually a huge racetrack. And I'm gonna put some other pictures on here too to kind of show you the last little bit of stuff. But Caligula was very well known for one of his biggest stories, one of his savagery stories, that apparently he had like over 100 consecutive days of gladiatorial games. And when he ran out of gladiators to go down in the pit because they were all dead or died by animal attack, he decided he just would point to one of the rows. He said first 5, right? And then like they took 5 rows of the poor out of the stands and then threw them in the pit with lions and a couple of small weapons to use. So very sadistic guy, but this was his favorite place to go, the Circo Massimo, also known as the Maximum Circus. So very, very cool stuff. I think the Colosseum is still my favorite thing I saw today. We also saw several other churches, but the thing about it is, guys, is that you simply can't fit all of Rome into a 15-minute video, all right? So I actually saw a lot of other stuff, and I'll be showing you some different pictures when I get back, but absolutely phenomenal journey, absolutely phenomenal. I had such a good time recording these for you guys, and we'll talk more about it when I get home, but I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Signing off from the trip. I'll see you guys back in the States, all right? Have a good one, Camden Catholic.